So I will not comment. I'm a do a community post so that my people can come over here.
All right, I guess we're live now, so if you want, you can share it at this point.
Yeah, let me do that now.
Just don't share the invite link.
Yeah, nah, I got it. That's why I said I was gonna go to your page.
So someone did that one time, and we had a whole issue where they like wanted to share it, but they shared the invite link instead of like the so all people were popping into the thing, and like, luckily it was nobody who was trying to troll. They just got shook. I'm like, oh shit. Yeah, man. Yeah, it's not getting as much love as I thought I was gonna get at all. It's not like one of the worst by any means, but it's like 4 out of 10. You know what I mean? I'm like, ugh.
Yeah.
Way too much work into it.
Well, mine right now. Well, I mean, it's been a minute since mine was up. Mine is like I think 6 out of 10 right now.
Yeah, man.
I figure part of it is because as far as the internet is, it's an old movie. You know what I mean? Anything older than like that's why I was going back and forth over whether I was going to do a Sinners video, but I had saw it so late, and I said, like I said in the thing, like I've done this video like 5 or 6 times already, so I said I'm just going to chop up my stream and then put something on the second channel, because by the time I get around to it, it's going to be old news.
Yeah, on my second channel I haven't really been using. I'm gonna start using just because I've noticed that it takes months for me to put out a video now because like I spend a lot of time in the editing process, right?
Yeah.
And so I was gonna invite you and FD on to talk about Sinners on there at some point in the next couple of weeks if y'all down. But
I'm down. Yeah, I'll be down.
What's up? So yeah, it's already I love how I'm already getting blowback. Someone really asked me for statistics and like research on the essay that pimps face when they were children a lot of times, and then if it's not that, it's not real. Like you can't use anecdotal. It's like, bro, it's how the game actually fucking works. Like I don't know what to tell you. It's like fundamentally.
You know what's wild? You want to know what's so wild about that? And this is no shade. This is no shade to her. If y'all haven't read Bell Hooks, read Bell Hooks. But everything Bell Hooks has to say is anecdotal, right? But folk live and die by that woman. They live and die by everything that she had to say. But there is no qualitative, no quantitative, no empirical data whatsoever that she uses to support anything that she says. But if you sit there and you read it, you like, nah, yeah, I you want something. You like you want like all right, you kind of going off a little left here, but overall, yeah, you want something. But it just goes to show, the type of people that we humanize and the other ones that we choose to, throw by the wayside.
Yeah, that's part of my point. And my response to him was like, you think that these fools humanize people enough to even have a study? Like, I'm gonna be real with you, man. Like, I'm gonna be real with you. That's not how it works. And also, it's like, ask any street person that's been around. Like, they'll all tell you the same thing. At least that type of pin. Like, now there's different types of things. You talk about like, oh, like a gorilla. That's a different conversation. That's a whole other conversation. A different type of person. You know what I mean? And I also said like people don't know the difference between pimp and ex trafficker. I don't want to get demonetized. So you know what I mean? I'm like, there's a difference. They can coincide, but they're not the same thing. And it's like, and people don't even understand that because it's more complicated than that. And people who haven't been in the game don't understand it. But also people who haven't been around sex workers, even people in the game, like there's a lot of D-boys that don't understand the shit. Right. But I have a lot of homegirls that are sex workers. I have a lot of brothers and cousins that were pimps, and I know exactly how they got on. You know what I mean? So I was like, I know exactly how that shit happened. And when I was in prison, I heard the same story there. I'm like, you telling me this is coincidence? This is just anecdotal? Come on, man. If people don't care to study, and then there's also researcher bias. It just frustrates me because I'm like, yo, that stuff isn't as powerful as people, at least online, make it out to be, right? All these studies, a lot of them are flawed. Like one of the things, I'll get away from this real after this, but one thing I was talking about, they talk about like, 90%, 92% of perpetrators being men. I'm like, that's just fucked. That statistic is fucked. And you know why?
Mm-hmm.
Because for a long history and still inside people's psyche, the way it was defined, only men could do that. You see what I'm saying? And we still internalize that, but
right.
a little off left. But I just wanted I feel like it's correlated.
And then men don't report either.
Yeah, I know.
Then boys don't report.
Not only do they not report, but they will wear it as like a badge of honor.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yep. You hit the nail on the head. Yep. I got a matter of fact, I'm working on something right now, and part of it I talked about. Well, I literally just about every male in my family, aside from maybe my dad, because I never had these kind of conversations with my dad anyway. He might have a story too. Basically, pretty much every black male that I've talked to has some type of story that if you remove yourself from it, you sit there and you listen to it like, dog, that sound like rape, man. That sound like rape. That sound like some type of sexual. And I've talked about my own experiences about how I didn't realize until later on down the line that like, nah, I was assaulted, but in my mind, what you can't get hard if you don't like it, right? And if you don't like it, then there's something wrong with you. So yeah, you hit the nail on the head. Is that a lot? We wear that as a badge of honor, but in reality, we walking around here traumatized.
Facts. And the thing is like, and that's why I frustrated with people attacking it, because I'm like, look, I'm not saying this. Like I specifically said in the video, this isn't to justify. I literally call pimps exploiters. You feel me? As someone with brothers and cousins, because it is what it is. I mean, now we can talk about bosses and other people and other roles that are socially acceptable also being just as much of exploiters, but that's the conversation people aren't ready for. So
yeah.
The thing is like, the reason like it feels like it irks me is it feels like it goes back to that point of dehumanizing and not seeing. And the thing is like, even why I went to UEP and I went to like the big cigar, because I wanted to talk about the complexity of this person that is, you can't make a good guy or a bad guy out of them because of all the complexity of who they were and the reality of that. Especially when it talks to the streets, that is the reality. You can't make good guys and bad guys out of it. You know what I mean? Some people are shittier than others. Some people are great people and they just do shit they gotta do to survive. But I feel like anyways, we're not off tangent, but we're like ahead, I guess.
I just realized Bellamy is in the chat terrorizing again. They do every time I'm on something, every single time. It never fails. It never fails. We got blocked Bellamy.
Damn. But I know the algo didn't really love this one, and I thought it would. That's why I was a little sad. I mean, I thought it would comparable to like what I usually do, you know what I mean, or like what I have done before. I guess I've been playing more into like trying to work the game. But so let's talk about They Clone Tyrone. So what was your thoughts? I want to see what you thought of the my analysis on the situation, and if we can get into that a little bit. So
I feel like I feel like we had said this when we was interviewing for it, is that we could, it reminds me a lot of me and FD's Shador Sanders videos, is that ultimately we pretty much wound up getting to the same point, right? Getting to the same idea, right? But just from two different angles. You feel me? So my thing is that so my approach was more because like I said before, I've never been. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like hold on. Am I too loud? Yeah, I'm asking you, am I too loud?
You're good, very good.
I'm not going to sit here and pretend like my hands is completely clean or whatever, but I ain't going to sit here and claim to be no street nigga either. You understand what I'm saying? I'm not going to sit here and act like, you feel me, I was out there. So or out there like that. I'll put it like that. But I know enough, right? I know enough that even while watching it, I was like, you kind of it was something wasn't sitting right with me, and I couldn't really put my finger on it until I started to think about it a little bit more. And I said, this is black. This is black excellence. This is the same talking points that I've been hearing, from the time that I was a kid. It's just dressed up in a revolutionary veneer, so to speak. And I feel like you said that, but you said it more forcefully and said it with, more because again, you've been in it, right? Yeah. Like I ain't been in it.
I've been in it, and I don't look like the people who don't know better. Like someone's in it, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like they would think the roles were reversed between me and you. Like, you know what I mean? And it's like, no. I was on the corner. Like the niggas you see on it wasn't Baltimore, but like the niggas you see on a wire on the corner on the curb, that was me. That was legit me for years of my life. You know what I mean? And before that, I was a little booster kid that was stealing shit and selling it to older kids. You know what I mean? So it was like, bro, people don't see that because they don't realize that we're more complex than just a caricature, right? We're like, a lot of us are legit nerds. Like, not everybody. There's some cool kids, but most of the cool kids have good families. You know what I mean? That's why they're the cool kids, is they got all like the social training to be able to be popular. Like, even though there was a lot of cats on the street that played sports, they still weren't the cool kids. They're the bad kids. You know what I mean? And the thing is, people don't even picture me as that. But I was like, yeah, no, I was the bad kids. I was the nicest of the bad kids for sure. Like, like that's why people are like, oh, if you got beef with Matt, you must be a dickhead because they cool. Like, you know what I mean? But that being said, like, I think one thing that seems that's hurting me about like the not doing well, which I mean, that should have been a given, but like, is I'm not saying it's doing bad, but they ain't doing what I wanted to do. Right? I wanted to beat the Kendrick video, which now I think about it.
That ain't gonna happen. That ain't. Listen, it's people. It's people that have made basically they whole they whole career. Not gonna lie, they whole career based off of just that beef. Well, old boy name, he kind of came and went, and he had beef with a company man for a hot minute, and then they told him to to fall back, like you like sit down and shut up. That one beef, he blew up off of that. You feel me? And we ain't hear from him since. You did. So I say that to say, man, you ain't gonna beat Kendrick.
Yeah, man. I mean,
anybody see Kendrick face on something, they're gonna click on it ASAP.
I just had lucky timing, honestly, because I was already in process of making that video.
Right.
And the Super Bowl happened. I was like, boom, good lucky timing, cool. But like,
well, that's what happened with me with the diss track video. Because originally that wasn't even really about. I just found the way to finagle that beef in toward the end, since it was that. But that was a video that really I was trying to have out months before it was, and it just kind of happened. It was just kind of serendipitous that it happened that way. So I said, all right, let me add a couple extra paragraphs in here. And
yeah, man. So yeah, and then like the thing is like what's sad about it too was like the Kendrick video. I feel like this was actually kind of an extension of that video, low key. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, because the conversation was pretty much the same conversation, but from a different thing.
It was. It really was.
It was like an evolution of that, pretty much. It was like part 1 and part 2 almost. If that makes sense.
Right.
But one was framed on Kendrick, one was framed about They Clone Tyrone. They Clone Tyrone I was working on for a long time, and I actually went back and redid it because a whole bunch of skits I cut. Partly because of time, but partly because as it developed, it felt like less like it fit in. You know what I mean? Because I started going for the more groovy 70s, you know what I mean, 60s, that type of feel, right? So I was like, okay, those skits don't work as much. Which part was going to be trolling about the algorithm. Literally, I had jokes about like how like I have somebody in the wall talking to me from a talk box telling me how I should have to do this because of the algorithm. But so the thing, it feels like people don't really want to look at the intersections of class and race. It is a frustration I think I'm having right now after dropping it. And like, it feels frustrating because it feels like that's the thing that keeps us from being able to really mobilize in a real way as Black folks, to be 100. Like, I feel like that divide right there, especially once you go all the way down to the underclass, not just like working class. Because there's like hate for the working class from the middle class, but it's like also once you get down to like being lumpen, yo, like we're expendable. And I appreciate this movie not doing that to a degree, but and I think a lot of people had issue with like, oh, but they did critique it with the OG Fontaine, right? But I was like, the thing is, I don't agree with that because I feel like though he was just one person, and then the clones were a mini, right? So it was saying like the hood was more the problem. And they're being a tool used by this person, which was something I very clearly went into like, no, that's not what's happening right now, and that's why I used oh, you were the voice of Mr. Thomas Macaulay, for example.
Yeah.
But I don't know, like, how do you feel like you see that on like in the cornbread tube spaces and on the left, and do you feel like people should have been able to see that in this movie, or do you think it's like really easy to miss? Like
I think it's easy. I think it's easy to miss specifically in this space. It's very easy to miss because I mean, if we just gonna I spent the last 20-30 minutes of the New Jack City video talking about this, is that at least as far as I know, I am the first and I'm not even lumping. You feel me? I grew up working class. I grew up on the border between working and working poor, but you feel me? I was never down bad like that. Like I said before, every Christmas I got what I wanted. You understand what I'm saying? It's just that I went outside and there was crackheads going up and down the street. You feel me? Looking for loose change. You feel me? So we was never down bad like that. Like, you know, we had food stamps every now and again, but you feel me? But anyway, I digress. I had made the point that if we really is on the type of time, you know, with all of these videos and whatnot that we make, you feel me? I should not be the first project baby to hit 100,000 subscribers. It should not be that way. You know what I mean? All love to everybody, you know, who hit their marks and did their thing and whatever and whatnot. But for me personally, it's indicative of how unserious this space is when it comes to actual direct action. You understand what I'm saying? And my thing is that in itself, I don't think is inherently a problem. But the problem is when you don't acknowledge that. Because I tell people all the time, you feel me? I'm an entertainer. You feel me?
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit up here and gas you like, you feel me, I'm the Marxist messiah or whatever. I'm trying to get this bread. I'm trying to feed my kids. I'm trying to buy a house. You feel me? So I'm not going to gas you like that. But, you know, I think that some people, they believe that they are more than what they truly are. Facts. You understand what I'm saying? They believe that by making this content, it makes them revolutionaries. You understand what I'm saying? Like they genuinely believe and they genuinely move like that. And you have people who feel like because they consume this content, it makes them revolutionaries. And then they get mad at people like me when I say, we don't need another Palestine video. You feel me? There's enough information out there. How much education do you need before you decide, all right, it's time for me to put this education into work? Or are you consuming that education as a form of entertainment? You understand what I'm saying? Now, if you are, that's all well and good. That's not a problem inherently, but embrace that. Accept the fact that you not like that. You can be, but you ain't. And so I say all of that to swing back around and say that I'm not surprised that a lot of people miss that, because you know folk assume because I read all the books, right? Because I got the degrees, because I talked to so and so, or I interviewed so and so, or I did that thing, or whatever the case may be, that I got it. And it ain't nothing, especially, you feel me, if you broke, if you poor, if you whatever, if you ain't read all the right books, you ain't got the right terminology, you feel me, ain't nothing you could tell me. You understand what I'm saying? So it's not surprising. It's a shame, but it does not surprise me, because this is what it has been since Black Power was killed, since Black Power died, is that it's the petite bourgeois Black folks who assume that it's their job to be the vanguard of the so-called revolution, when they don't even really know what we revolting against. You understand what I'm saying?
Their idea of revolution is campaign for Harris, so like it's kind
right.
of like a joke. like look, man, like the way I put it is like, here's the thing. There's people who draw the Black Panther, right? And then there's people, I would say like myself, who are like Emory Douglas, nigga. Like there's a difference between the two, right? Motherfuckers, Emory Douglas was out in the movement and doing art and trying to use that. And I don't know if he was trying to use art to make money. I'm not gonna lie. I need money. I'm poor as fuck. I struggle through this shit to make this, to just be able to afford this little ass. Like what you see is my whole house. Like you're just missing my kitchen on this side. That's it. Like and this all in one, to give you a clue. And this is the best I've ever lived, to be real. Like I've never had a studio before until now, and I'm old as fuck. But people don't even realize that like that just consuming, not only just consuming, but making content isn't really doing much if it isn't followed with like action and building infrastructure in a real way. And not to mention that like having an education and reading all the books or making YouTube content doesn't make you qualified.
Exactly.
Like, and anybody, and most of the people, if you ask people who actually go out and organize, who most of the people doing most of the work are, they're people at the bottom. It's not people like that came out of college. And a lot of people who do come in the movement spaces that come out of college, everybody can tell you they fuck shit up 90% of the time because they think they know because they read some books. Right. Like, well, this book told me this is no, bro, but we've been out here doing it. We actually deal with the actual circumstances. Now, it's the same thing with like the streets too, because like people have this analysis or their thoughts on like the streets, and they don't even understand what it really is or what things mean or the complexity that exists within it. And it feels like that thing overlaps, especially because the streets a lot of times are going to be people that rise up. They're going to be people who are holding out organizing, because guess what? It's our material reality. It is our material reality. Like we are affected by what we do or don't do in our communities. Right. But people who just theorize about it, they don't really do anything in our communities, and they don't understand the context of what's going on. They don't know why homie shot the other homie. You know what I mean? Right. They don't understand why these things happened and how to deal with them in the first place. And it was really frustrating because I think I was talking to Celinda, which has been on the channel before, but most of y'all subscribe, so y'all don't know who they are. But Celinda's the organizer in Albuquerque, super down, hood ass organizer, hood sister from like she's Afro Latina to be specific, and people don't understand what it is in those situations, but also they don't listen to us. Like overall, they like all the people who really organize and try to make YouTubes and try to do stuff like that. Like I'm probably the biggest one. Like I could be wrong. I don't know everybody, but from what I've seen, I'm the biggest one. And people, and you know how I know this too, because people reach out to me to be like, I just got reached out to by someone represent one of the homegirls who represents the new African Black Panthers, right? And they wanted me to do some like workshop on how to do this type of stuff. I'm like, okay, I can do. I can share with you what I can share, but like also, I am tiny. I am. I know it seems like a lot when you have like 5 subscribers, but I am tiny. You know what I mean? But the problem is like, why don't people want to hear the voices of those most affected, and why don't they analyze why they don't? Because I feel like they don't.
Okay, so and this is something I say all the time, is that and this goes not just for for content creators, but just in general, is the vast majority of so-called leftists aren't actually leftists, but they see leftist politics as a means to access whatever privilege they've been denied. You understand what I'm saying? So if you are, you feel me, uh middle class, and this is the reason why you see so many folk fail to acknowledge, let alone engage, that intersection between race and class, because as far as they're concerned, it's not a class thing, it's just a race thing. You understand what I'm saying? It's just systemic racism, but dismiss the fact that that systemic racism is the reason why it's a disproportionate number of niggas who are poor compared to white folks. You understand what I'm saying? But we ain't really we're not really thinking about them folks so much as we're using their story as evidence to back up the points that we're making, that that systemic racism is real. But what are you doing specifically to address the poverty that you see going on right now? You understand what I'm saying? Like, and it to me, the biggest tell for me is in the way that people talk about issues, in the way that people talk about politics. And I was on this interview with these young kids from Philly the other day, and I was telling them this is that if you and again, this is no shade, free Palestine, we support Palestine, and that's not what I'm saying. But what I'm telling you is that if you know more about what's going on in Palestine, if you know more about the politics of how we got there, then you know about what's going on up the block from you. That's a problem. That shows me how serious you are about actually, because we talk so much and we hyper focus on these quote unquote big world issues. You understand what I'm saying? These geopolitical, sometimes not even geopolitical. Sometimes it's domestic. Everybody is talking about everybody talking about M4A, or talking about reproductive rights on a national scale. You understand what I'm saying? But what is going on your block directly that you can address? What about the people that ain't got nothing to eat, don't got no coat for the winter? You understand what I'm saying? What about the little girls that's running around? She done had her first period, and mom can't afford to buy her tampons. Do you know about that? Do you know about the girl that's finna have her baby? They can't afford to get Pampers. You know how expensive Pampers is? Having to buy that over and over and over again. You understand what I'm saying? So you don't know about that, but you want to tell me about what Jasmine Crockett is doing. You understand what I'm saying? That's what tells me that you unserious. You know what I mean? So again, going back to this idea of a lot of people, and I don't think that it's intentional. I think that a lot of people I feel like the more marginalized you are, the less apt you are to actually do self inventory and to say, where am I falling short at? You understand what I'm saying? I think that you're less apt to say, okay, well, maybe I'm part of the problem. You understand? By ignoring, this group of people over here, because I'm so hyper focused on my own marginalization. I'm so hyper focused on my own oppression. You understand what I'm saying? That I'm not really thinking about these folk over here. You understand what I'm saying? But we don't look at that, and we don't consider that, because again, that's not really what a lot of this is about. A lot of this is catharsis, really. Because at the end of the day, we can sit up here and we can whine. We talk about, oh, Trump is doing this. Oh, they doing this over here. They doing that over there, and whatever the case may be. But if we going to keep it a buck, for the vast majority of us that's doing that, it's not impacting us as directly as the folk that is being ignored. And they're less concerned about talking about it than they are finding a way to navigate what it is right now. They don't got time to wait for, policy that ain't going to take effect for like the next 2, 3, 4 years. I'm hungry now. You feel me? My kids is locked up now. You understand what I'm saying? I don't got time to debate or to go back and forth about, what the world that you want. I'm talking about the world that we got. How do we engage the world that we got now? So that, for me, I feel like that's how serious I can tell folk are about whatever their politics is how do you plan on engaging what we got? Later for what you want, but how are you engaging, or what do you plan to do to engage what we got now?
I mean, I think also too, like, I want to touch on a little electoralism side of it too. Like, that thing is the reason people don't really give a fuck. People like me too, as an organizer, don't really give a fuck about electoralism, is because it doesn't really affect us. Because when they're like, what? How does it affect you? All these policies are bad. Well, it's because we know what it is. It's just going to keep getting worse. And it doesn't matter who's in office. Shit gets worse. We know it. We got to adapt to that. We got to maneuver with that. And we don't have any faith. And I think a lot of people like try to like shit and people like, oh, they're uneducated, so they don't vote. No, it's because we're completely educated about exactly how it affects us.
Yeah.
Which is everything gets worse no matter who. Everything gets worse no matter who. And that's the whole trend, right? And then when we talk about like, oh, you got to work against Trump, Trump isn't the problem that a lot of us see. It is the nation. It is the whole nation. Both sides of that spectrum is the problem. It's the nation that incarcerates us. It's the nation that keeps us in poverty. It's the nation that enforces that poverty by the dogs of the system, the police with their guns. It's like all those things come directly from the system, no matter Democrat or Republican. But people don't want to see that, because then it makes them feel powerless. But they're not really that they're powerless. It's just that people who have more privilege, in my experience, don't want to sacrifice what it would take to sacrifice.
That's exactly what it
is. To be able to get to freedom, to be able to get liberated, is because they're cool enough getting the scraps off master's table.
Right.
And I'm gonna say just like that, because that's what it is. That they'll do like, okay, let's just like pick a nicer master. Let's make sure we're on a nicer plantation. Fuck that. Burn that motherfucker down. This is like hyperbole, y'all. Don't demonetize, please. Don't demonetize. I need the bread. But like, look, man, for real, the plantation got to go. Like, I don't want Master Jimmy's plantation over Master Ruckus's plantation. Fuck both of them motherfuckers. I hope they fight to death. So like for example, when the whole go back to the whatever was it when all the fucking Trump dudes ran up in the shit. Like, I did not. You know what I thought in that moment? Let me get some popcorn. There was no like, oh my god. I'm like, whatever this turns out, it's gonna be less of the ops. Whatever way this goes, it's less of the ops. And like with two sides that our enemies are fighting, I'm not really too vested, right? But like, I think what would really make a difference though is that people actually saw, instead of trying to run from it, because there's something that FD said about in this video that was very specific, that was really on point. It was like people scared they're gonna see us in them. And I was like, if you would embrace that, we might actually get somewhere. And then the thing is, like, one of the things I point out in that video too, I think is really important, is police violence is violence. The things, if you were to break down what is happening in that situation without automatically validating the state as a legitimate institution, what would that look like? You know what I mean? And I think that's a big fundamental part of it. If we can stop being like, look, who has the cleanest hands? Because let's be real, none of us have clean hands. Some of us just know we obviously have blood on our hands. And some people are like, oh, my hands are clean, but they're drenched in blood, right? So it's like, okay, by distancing yourself from it doesn't make you more innocent. We can accept that and be, okay, we are all problematic and we all got to build and work towards being better people and better communities and better, and not just black people. That's everybody, clearly, obviously. White people are worse. But I'll probably lost a subscriber there. I do not care. I'll stand on that. But you know, I think fundamentally that's a big barrier, and I think that's also kind of the thing that I was critiquing about it, the way they perceived the streets. Like it became like a two-dimensional person instead of like a full person who you could see yourself loving and caring about and being worried for, and like, you know, and I think that's part of the problem. And even though we were depicted as the good guys at the end, the fact that we're portrayed as something that is a weapon inherently to be used in
Yeah.
his own community is a problem. That's the one thing I think I agree with FD on. I was like, yeah, there's this one dude over there that's like the chief like cloner dude, and he's a piece of shit, but like a lot more of them are the problem than us, and most of us are the victims of it, and we further can victimize each other sometimes because niggas fighting for resources, niggas fighting for a lot of things, for survival, for having a good life. But that being said, we got to see it in the context. It's like you listen to Dead Prez, right? You ever heard their skit about the wolf and the blade?
No.
So I can't remember what CD it was on, but they had this skit about wolf and the blade, about how the hunter put the blood on the blade and stabbed into the snow, and so the wolf would come lick it, and they bleed, and they lick it more because it tastes good, and it bleeds some more until the wolf finally dies. Right? Do you blame the wolf or do you blame the hunter? And the metaphor was like the streets are the wolf, right?
Right.
And the hunter is the one that baited it and is killing the are not. I mean, not just. I guess it's black people too. I mean, it's like double analogies, like a double entendre, right? Because they're talking about black folks, but like, how are you blaming the street niggas that are coming out trying to eat? The wolf for trying to eat, but not the hunter that set the trap. You know what I mean? And so now I like that analogy a lot because it's very accurate in some ways.
Right.
I do say I don't think the structure is the hunter. I think a hunter has a lot more valid than the system is. So to be clear.
Yeah.
But I think
but the analogy works,
the analogy being fundamentally like we consistently blame our most marginalized parts of our community for their oppression consistently, and then somehow blame us for I'm not y'all's, but like the petite black the black petite bourgeoisie for their oppression. It's like that's not how it works. Like privilege fundamentally steps on those below them, not those below stepping on those above them. I mean, I wish that worked, and we'd have the billionaires in check, right? Like they were billionaires if that was how it worked, But I think that's one of the things that the analysis is weak on in this movie. I think it's something that is really widespread. I also wanted to touch on the thing of like the way. Oh no, never mind. I'll leave it there because I forgot what I was going
to say. That's all right.
But yeah, I don't know. So what do you think what do you think it'd take for us to get to a different place within our community where we can start actually addressing those things and being honest about?
Man, I think first it starts with something you touched on, is that folks just got to be honest with themselves. You know what I mean? Folks just got to take a good long look in the mirror and tell the truth, about who they are, what type of time they on, and then move accordingly. You understand what I'm saying? Like I said, I am under no, and this isn't to beat my own chest or whatever, but the little bit that I do, I do a lot more, as far as direct action than the vast majority of creators who have platforms 5 times, 10 times as big as mine. That said, I am under no impression. I am under no delusion that I'm some type of revolutionary because of the little bit that I do. Because the reality is that I'm utilizing a platform that's owned by fascists. You feel me? To make this money, right? To make this bread. You feel me? Like you said, we're all complicit to some degree. It's like it's funny. Like I had somebody because I had made the NFL video, and everybody always the NFL, and I'm like, listen, dog. Until you give up whatever blood mineral powered device that you use to type this out, let's not do that. You understand what I'm saying? Let's not play that game, because we all got. It's funny to me, the same people, who is, capitalism this, all billionaires bad, free Luigi this, that, and the third thing, was talking about the Met Gala the other night. You understand what I'm saying? So I say all of that to say, you know, you got to be real, and you got to be honest about what role you are playing in perpetuating the state of things. You understand what I'm saying? And understand that none of us have clean hands. You did.
Right.
And then once you do that, it will humble you. You understand what I'm saying? It will make you say, it will make, even if you can't empathize with them, it will make you less prone to demonizing, you feel me, the dope boy, you feel me, who may have shot an op or whatever. It'll make you humanize, you know, the ones who you say is poisoning the community. You know, humanize the clones once you realize that we are all to some degree, what's the word that I'm looking for, compromised by the state. So my thing is like, once you get to that point, then we can start making a move to actually make things right. And then once that, again, the key thing is you got to listen. You understand what I'm saying? Like I was telling, I don't know if you watch Potty Mouth, but I had an interview with Dom from Potty Mouth, and I was telling him, you feel me, y'all the ones. It ain't me. Y'all the ones. You feel me? Like I'm in the suburbs. You feel me? I'm not out there like y'all. I'm not, you know, tapped in the way that y'all is. But I understand that, and I'm willing to accept that. I'm willing to, you know, to play my role. You feel me? To educate, to provide the resource or whatever the case may be. But I'm under no delusion, you feel me, that that I'm some sort of freedom fighter or whatever. You understand what I'm saying? I think more folk got to understand that, got to realize that just because you post about it online, that don't make you a revolutionary. You feel me? Just because you make videos, just because you do this, that, and the third thing and whatever. Now, like, and that's one thing, you know, that I've always respected about FD, is that he's under no delusion, and he makes this very clear. I am an entertainer. You understand what I'm saying? Don't ask me. I will direct you to the folk that you need to be talking to the folk you need to be paying attention to. But folk don't want to do that. They don't want to do that because in the back of their, whether it's conscious or it's subconscious, they feel, you know, I listened to my one black friend, you feel me, tell me about systemic racism. I did my part. You feel me? I'm going to stop with the microaggressions and all, but that's the way that folk move. And I know for a fact that that's the way that a lot of people look at me and say, oh, well, I listened to this one hood dude, you feel me, tell me about the way that things is. And I'm trying to tell y'all, I'm not like that. You feel me? I'm from there, but I ain't there no more. I keep trying to tell. I'm in the suburbs. You feel? I got out of there because I ain't want my kids in that environment, and I'm not going to sit here and gas y'all like I'm not. You feel me? I do the little bit that I can, but I'm not the one that y'all need to be coming to saying, oh, you know, well, how do we do that? Nigga, I don't know. I ain't listen. I have not. Well, that's a lie. I pass by my old neighborhood just about every day, but I haven't lived there for over a decade. You feel me? The way that things was moving and shaking down there back then is not what they are today. I don't know. I don't know the politics of what's going on. I don't know, you feel me, who holding down this block over here. I don't know, because everybody moved out and went somewhere else. It's something else going on now. So I say all of that, but I'm humble enough to admit that. You feel me? Because I'm serious about what I'm trying to do. So my thing is that if you serious, you feel me, you gotta learn how to shut up sometimes. You understand what I'm saying? You gotta learn how to shut up. You gotta learn how to listen to folk. You understand what I'm saying? Who not only have seen it, but are seeing what it is right now. You got to learn. You got to be willing to be. You got to be willing to be educated. And I don't think it's enough folk that's willing to be educated by folk who they feel are. you gotta be willing to be educated by the uneducated, if that makes sense. And it's not enough folk that's willing to do that. If you don't got the letters behind your name, if you don't got the $5 words, then ain't nothing you can do for me. You
Crazy
feel
thing
me?
is, cats aren't uneducated. Like that's the thing that people don't understand. People aren't uneducated. Even people who
Well,
can't read.
you know what I mean when I
Yeah,
say
no. I know
right.
what you mean. I know what you mean. But I just want to clarify for everybody. Listen, you know, what I mean, people aren't educated. People completely understand like complex theories that academics struggle to comprehend. Right, but it's not in like the $50 word way. You know what I mean? It's just by
Right.
perceiving it. Right, like life experience also, by the way, counts for something. Like
Yeah, exactly.
people don't value that. People have a lot of
Nah.
knowledge came from life experience. And my stance, and will always be, is that is the most useful knowledge because it comes from real shit. And one thing I will say is I think anybody can be a revolutionary, but people aren't. Like you're not because you're
Exactly.
choosing not to. And like
Mm-hmm.
now, a revolutionary isn't a guerrilla fighter. I want to be clear because people want to conflate that shit. I'm like, no, that's not the same. Revolutionary, like, yeah, if you're really a revolutionary, if shit hits the fan and you got to go that direction, you're going to go that direction. That being said, revolutionary is anybody who takes actual action to try to bring about how I say this TOS way, a shift of power away from those who presently own it.
Right.
Right. So I think this is the most PC way.
And like I said, I ain't on that time. I'm trying to get this bag.
and that's one of the facts that frustrate me is because low key, like or high key, I am like that. That's the thing is, and it'll frustrate me. And everybody who doesn't get listened to, and it's really frustrating because, like, look, if you want to talk about that shit, like maybe you should listen to those who have the experience and put the work in instead of somebody who spent time in a white supremacist institution and got a degree through that and their understanding of it through that, because those institutions are only going to tell you what they want to hear, what they want you to believe. You know what I mean? They're only going to tell you so much dissident ideas to a certain level to keep you within a certain construct and make you feel like you still hold that. And that's one of my big problem with like the idea of revolutionary on the left is like, no, y'all niggas are barely reformists. Barely reformists. Like, and come about revolutionary, that doesn't make sense, bro. Because you know, and then if you hating on somebody for not voting, for example, you're not a revolutionary. Honestly, I'd say if you're barely leftist if you're doing that. If you like are pro gun control, you're not even a leftist. Like, there's no way to do that because fundamentally leftist is not as anti that. Don't get me wrong, I get it. There's a bunch of right wingers that are anti that, but right wingers aren't actually anti gun control. They're anti gun control for them. For their white asses, even not even just them, but their white asses. If you black, you still take black people's guns away. Let's still keep that going.
Right.
You know what I mean? And fundamentally, but all those things, a street nigga any day would understand that without a second thought. Like, dog, someone might kill me out here. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, if I don't have a gun, I might die. Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
But the people don't see that as valuable knowledge, right? And one of the things I have just always had this analogy is like, yeah, all these people who are academics and like they're really, really smart, right? They want to talk down to people and be condescending, but they're smart enough to get themselves punched in the face. Like, yeah, I mean, when people be talking certain ways, I'm like, you're smart enough. And I'm not advocating violence, nobody, so don't take it that way. I'm just saying, like, people will talk themselves into a fight, but then it'll be like, look, I'm the most intelligent. And it's just like, bro, if we just listen to each other, we could be way further.
Yeah.
And I think fundamentally, the thing is that I don't believe in, I think a lot of our politics are like Reaganomics, right?
Yeah.
They believe that it's going to come from the top and trickle down, which in my experience, that's never true in any type of way, right? And for us as like people on the, I guess, so-called left, I think we should be thinking about bottom-up politics from the get, right? Which means accepting that street niggas have valid, well, not only critiques, but are valid people that deserve not only to be heard, but to be supported and have people have their back. And also, let's be real, if shit goes south, you guys want us to have your back, don't you? Like, I think you do. I think you really, really do. You know what I mean? I don't know. Any thoughts? I think we're going to get to about an hour, so I don't want to hold you too long if you got other things you got to do.
Nah, I mean, I don't. I'll say that there's value in being able to find words for ideas, right? I think that's where the value in a formal education comes, because like, and I've said this before. I'm the child of, you feel me, a Garveyite and a recovering 5%er. You understand what I'm saying? So none of this, you feel me, black power, black radicalism, none of this is new. I grew up with it. My father literally had a portrait in his front room with Marcus Garvey and Elijah Muhammad on it. So but saying that, because you feel me, my parents got their my dad wasn't ever in the streets, but he got his radicalism from folk that had been in the streets, right? And my mom got hers directly from the streets. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So they were imparting into me ideas and concepts that I didn't have terminology for it until I went to I pointed it out. I said, "Oh, okay, so that's what my dad was talking about. That right there. So this is what this is, and that is what that is." You understand what I'm saying? And it wasn't necessarily, them sitting me down and teaching me. Okay, I just had enough sense to connect the dots and say, "Oh, all right, so that's why things are," and I still do that today. Is really all I'm doing is I'm just applying terms, or I'm just applying concepts that I learned in the books to explain what I saw growing up, or explain what somebody told me when I was younger. You understand what I'm saying? So I think that's where the value in reading the books comes from. But again, like I said, if I had, just grown up in the burbs somewhere, you understand what I'm saying? And then, went to and it's as much as we talk about PWIs, HBCUs as well. I'm gonna keep the HBCU Negroes be the worst with this, to keep it a buck. So if I it'd be different if I had grown up in the burbs my whole life, and then went to college, then took a class, and then all of a sudden I feel like I got it all figured out. And that's why I'm able to occupy this space where I can understand, you feel me, where the petite bourgeois black folks, the way that their mind is working, right? Mm-hmm. Because I was educated the same way that they were, but I don't come from where they come from. You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. You dig? I come from where y'all come from, and I saw what y'all saw. You understand what I'm saying? So that's why I'm able to clock stuff like that, and to be able to say, all right, I get where y'all are coming from, but that ain't how it worked. You got to come down here, and you have to actually see it, or at the very least talk to somebody who has seen it to really understand and to see how that works. Like you were saying earlier about the pimping thing. You ain't gonna know that unless you know somebody that been pimping. You understand what I'm saying? Right. You ain't gonna understand it unless you actually talk to a pimp. You can sit up there and read all, you feel me, the Iceberg Slim books that you want, but you're not really going to understand how that works, how the mind of a pimp works. You're not really going to understand the mind of a dope boy unless you know a dope boy, or unless you've been a dope boy, or unless you talk to one. You understand? You're not going to you are not going to understand. You are not going to understand, and that's why, and I feel like we had talked about this before, is you are not going to understand the politics of how so-called gang wars start. Vast majority of the time, that's just niggas having personal beef. Then I gotta go back,
and you kill and then it escalates, someone getting killed, and you now kill someone, homie. Right, and now they want some get back.
You killed my homie. Now I gotta go kill 2 of yours. Now I gotta go kill 3 of yours. Now we gotta go get the AR. Now we gotta go get something.
Half the time they're not even aiming at the other motherfuckers.
Right,
they're aiming at you.
Exactly.
And then they just happen to get the motherfuckers, and they're like, fuck it, because you with them anyways. Mm-hmm. And it's like,
but the thing is, you don't know that unless you have seen it. you don't know that unless you have seen it or unless you have talked
Look.
to unless you know somebody who has lived that, and they will tell you, no, this happened because homie over there was messing with so-and-so's baby mom, and he felt the type of way about it, and it just escalated into something bigger. It wasn't never, and now we so far down the line, we don't even know how it started. We just know that the set over here don't like the set over there. But again, you don't know that if all you know is watching The Wire,
or like the fact that a lot of shit starts, low key, a lot of shit has started because of somebody essaying somebody else's homegirl or something. You know what I mean? A lot of shit has started like, y'all want to talk about you being against all this shit, but the niggas really move on that, and then you try to lock that nigga up. You know what I mean? Like, the fuck out of here, man. You know what I mean? It's like, bro, stop.
And that's why I always, I know we finna hop off in a little bit, but that's why I keep coming back to this point about all of this stuff. And this was one of my big issues when I started, getting big in this space, is that all of this stuff, you feel me, that I hear and see y'all talking about, and this is a perfect example of what I was just saying about, having, going to school and then having terminology to understand stuff that I've been practicing from the time that I was a kid. You feel me? Y'all telling me about restorative justice. Y'all telling me about, mutual aid. Y'all telling me about restorative justice. To me is getting your lick back. You understand? That's what that was growing up. That's oh, y'all mess with my sister. All right, come on, we finna mount up and we finna go show him what time it is. And I said, oh, okay. So now I have a word to apply to this thing that we've been doing since I was a kid. You understand what I'm saying? Oh, mutual aid. That's when I used to go and knock on Miss D's house when my mom was at work, and she would give us a plate so that we wouldn't be hungry while my mom was out working. You understand what I'm saying? But again, you don't know this unless you talk to the people who had to rely on the community, had to rely on y'all talking so much about community. You feel me? You got to talk to the people that relied on that to survive. That's how you learn how to build it, is you talk to the people that if we ain't have community, you feel me, then we would not be here. You understand what I'm saying? So again, it comes back to folk learning how to humble themselves, and it comes back to folk learning when and how to recognize that I don't got it all.
Bet. And look, that too, and also just knowing what their lane is too, because the homegirl hopped in the comments. I mean, I understand, like, as a woman, I can understand why you have an instinctive urge against that, what I just said, and the stuff about that, but like, yo, I'm not capping, and I don't need the statistics, but also, like, people don't take the time to sit down and really, like you said, understand it. And one of the things I would say, go back to what you're saying about, like, pimping's politics, right? The politics of pimps and what they think. I was like, bro, if you want to know the truth, pimps have the best understanding of capitalism I've ever fucking seen in my fucking life. Like, when they describe how that shit, bro. But people don't want to listen to that because they're exploiters. Like, and yes, they are.
They're pimps.
But they're also exploiters that are like at the bottom of the totem pole. And like, don't get it wrong. There's also some degree. There's a lot of degrees of exploitation they're going through themselves. And the thing is, like, also a lot of it is much more complicated. And then also one thing I really want to emphasize too. Y'all don't say that because you give a fuck about sex workers. Y'all don't say that because you give a fuck about sex workers. Stop the fucking cap. And I get so sick of this shit because people. Like, it's frustrating because also one thing I want to emphasize on is, like, even if you see in they clone Tyrone, sex workers are the backbone of any revolutionary movement. And one thing I really frustrated to me that I wanted to say, I didn't have enough time to get it out in time. It was already so late, but I wanted to say in that video that I didn't really get to was that, like, even in that movie, the sex workers were fundamentally the backbone of everything, but got zero of the credit. Right, because like when they were spreading the messages so they could actually go and make a move, who was able to do that? Right? Who is the best person for espionage? Like, let's be fucking real. But because of the way we view things, like, one, we weaken ourselves, but two, we don't give them the credit they do. You know what I mean? And one thing I get really frustrated with about all these people that are on some self-righteous shit, like, or whatever thing, and they know something when they don't know, it's like they don't ever know who they're talking to, right? Like, you don't, like, when people talk to me, but like when the lady came at me about that shit, I was like, look, I respect why you think you're thinking this way, but you don't know me like that. Most, like, yes, I have a lot of cousins, but you know what? I also have a lot of homegirls and homies that are sex workers. What people don't know is I've done sex work too. People don't know that. No, don't know that at all, because I don't. It's not something that I make a center part of my thing, and I'm also not the most affected by that. I'm not affected. That's not even the right word. I don't know why I said that, because I know why I said that, but like, you know, that's not a good word. Right. But like, I'm not the most involved in that situation. But like, the reality is, those things are so much more complex than people, but people are so stuck in dehumanizing and wanting to, like I said in that movie, and not movie, but the video, beastify us, make us like less than human. And fundamentally, it's detrimental to not just us, but to Black folks as a whole. And one thing I want to say about the people thinking it's race, not class. I'm like, bro, class is the fundamental manifestation of where you lie on the privilege oppressive scale. Like, that is how it physically manifests. You know what I mean? Yeah. So if you have more class privilege, you have more privilege. It is what it is. Like, that is why you have that privilege, is because you were able to grant access. You can fit into the white supremacist construct better, all those type of things. You know what I mean? And so it's like, bruh. And I think you got a long ways to go as far as
people think, and I was talking about this in the left has a whiteness problem, is people think that you can't occupy the role of oppressed and oppressor at the same time. You can only be one or the other. You understand what I'm saying? They look at oppression like a scale, right? When really it's a bunch of circles that make up intersections, that make up Venn diagrams. You understand what I'm saying? So, you feel me? Yeah, you may be, you feel me, you may be a poor white person, but you are still white. You understand what I'm saying? You may be a Black man, but you are still a man. And as a man, you occupy, you are the beneficiary of not a level, but a type of privilege that someone who's not a man is never going to be able to have in a patriarchal structure. But that does not take away from the simultaneous experience of being oppressed because you are Black. You understand what I'm saying? So you occupy both spaces. And I think that folk don't want to recognize that, especially in terms of class, because the stone cold reality, and you were hitting on this earlier, is that any of us that are anything above underclass are direct beneficiaries of the have-nots remaining in that space. You understand what I'm saying? It's an old. I'll sum it up like this: is an old bit that George Carlin had. He said something about the middle class. What did he say? The rich keep all the money. The middle class, the rich do a little bit of the work, get most of the money. The middle class do most of the work, get a little bit of the money. The poor are there to keep the middle class folk at them jobs because they don't want to be down where they are. You understand what I'm saying? And we all at the end of the day, capitalism has to have haves and have-nots. It does not work if you don't. You understand what I'm saying? So we all enjoy some degree. Again, if you are not underclass, you enjoy some degree of privilege at the direct expense of somebody else, more than likely somebody of color. Again, the fact that I'm using this laptop right here, some child in some Ugandan mineral deposit probably died so I could have this. You understand what I'm saying? But we don't want to think about that part. All we want to think about is, oh, my oppression, my oppression, my oppression. But like you were saying earlier, we all got blood on our hands. You understand what I'm saying? It's just that some of us have a more intimate relationship with the blood that is on our hands, and we're willing to acknowledge our complicity. But the more removed you are from that blood, you feel me? If you're the CEO of United Healthcare and you don't got to see all of the people that wound up dying because you denied them coverage, you understand what I'm saying? You don't have to be faced with your complicity like somebody, you feel me, who pulled the trigger on their eye. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I also think, to be honest, man, I have more respect all day and every day. Maybe it's the way I brought up, but more respect for actually doing your dirt yourself. Like, I think that's actually actually speaks to your character instead of against it. I mean, when you talk about doing dirt wise, I mean, like it speaks versus like just sitting back and letting a state do it for you. And then, like, you know what I mean? Like, for example, like, all right, if you want to have someone held hostage and kidnapped, you know, do it yourself instead of calling the police. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you see what I'm saying? I'm not actually advocating, again, TOS, which is a hypothetical, right? Like, this is an analogy, but you know, it's those things. Is like, but we see it as the person who actually dirties their hands is the worst one. I'm like, no, I disagree with that. Personally, I think that just serves the people that are powerful. That's something that serves the privileged people because they never do shit themselves and they use our bodies as their weapons. And I think it's just so much more complexity to it than people want to give it credit for. And I think what it comes down to is people trying to protect their own material interests, because the thing is, I don't think a lot of people really acknowledge that their material interest isn't necessarily in the interest of liberation. You know what I mean?
Right. That's it right there. That's it.
Even when they say it. But people at the bottom, it literally is materialist. No, do we always realize our material interest? Do we always realize that our material interest is in liberation? No, I wish we did. We don't always realize that. But when motherfuckers do realize that, we really realize that. You know what I mean? And versus there's folks who it really isn't, because some people's, let's be real, some people that make some of the YouTubers that make leftist YouTube, their life would get worse if liberation happened. You know what I mean?
A lot. Let's not beat around the bush. Is a lot, if not most. Let's just keep it a buck.
Hassan's life would get worse, for example. Like,
listen, I ain't naming no names. I'm just saying a lot. A lot of folk in this space, you feel me, would be worse off if, you know, if it really came down to brass tacks and the revolution was really on like that. The vast majority, listen, I'll put myself in there, is that I'll probably be worse off, at least in the short term. You know what I mean? Anybody and everybody who is not, again, anybody and everybody who benefits directly from the exploitation of somebody else, you understand what I'm saying, is going to be worse off at the very least in the short term. And that's what keeps a lot of people, I think, even if subconsciously folk are conscious of that, is that to really achieve the kind of liberation that I'm talking about, it means I'm going to have to sacrifice, you feel me? I'm going to have to sacrifice this life that I got right now. And I like this life, you feel me? It ain't the best, but it's also something I'm comfortable with. You understand what I'm saying? And a lot of folk, you know, I don't think have acknowledged that part about themselves.
Man, I mean, yeah, I think there's a lot of things with individuals' mentalities that are put in there too. Like, my native homie Ant, he be like, he's very much he shared this, and I want to point out the native for this one reason, because like his philosophy very much is rooted in his ancestry, you know what I mean? But like, he told me this thing, and I've always vibed with it super hard. He's like, Americans like to worry about their rights. We don't give a fuck about no rights. It's about responsibilities. And I was like, that and that is the literal problem. We're worried about our rights, our things, our privileges, instead of our responsibility to the future, our responsibility to our children, or to the children around us if we don't have children. Because guess what, even if you don't have children, you're responsible to the children around you. Like, I don't like, that's all. If it's your community, that's your responsibility. And I think that's the biggest problem in America right now. What holds us back from having any revolutionary movements or even good organizing movements half the time is that everybody's thinking about their rights to have this, their rights to have that, instead of the responsibility to the people around them, to their community, to our people. You know what I mean? And I think, you know, that's why we can still dehumanize street niggas. That's why we can still do all these things and not step forward. I mean, I say us all, but I don't really actually consider myself part of that, at least not that group at least yet, because I'm still barely making rent like every month. So, like I'm struggling. I'll be without food, hoping for the next chance to edit a video for FD or somebody else. Like, please, I need to. You know what I mean? So it's like, the thing is, like, but in reality, like, even me thinking about it, I think about all the time about the things that if this keeps going in a way and I start actually getting some headway and we make more money, right, it's going to be a thing that I'm going to have to be willing to sacrifice. And I completely understand that, because for me, I'm at the point in my life that no matter how much money you give me, it will never replace the things I've lost. It will never replace the people that I lost. You know what I mean? It will never replace the people around me. There's no way I'm going to, like, but most people don't think like that. They really think they can't replace people. They really think they'll just find a new friend. And we're like, no, man, that's not cool. I mean, you can do that, but you're going to live a life that's empty. You're going to live a life with lacking real relationships. You're going to live a life where you don't build real connections, and that at the end of the day, that you might not be worth the dirt that took to bury you. So like, and to me, I'd rather live a life that's hard. I mean, I don't want to live a life that's hard. It is what I've been living, but I'd rather live a life that's hard that means something to people outside of just myself. That makes a difference. And I think that's not only what I want to do, but that's my responsibility, right? Because the reason I went through a hard life is because so many people just fucking jumped the fuck out of it. That chose not to step up. You know what I mean? And it's just, I don't want to be that person. All the people that failed me, I don't want to be that for everybody around me. And also, I want to be real with you. As someone that comes from the bottom, it's just not easy, man. I haven't mentored in years, like, for a reason, because a lot of the youth that I was mentoring, especially the ones that were like a little bit older, that were adults at the time, you know what I mean? That kind of take the little homie role instead of just like youth, you know what I mean? Like, a lot of them went through some heavy shit. A lot of them died. A lot of them shit, and that shit breaks your fucking heart, bro. And it's hard. That's why I haven't mentored in years, is because I used to be a mentor, but it just, I saw a lot of people get strung out. A lot of these youth. It's different when I see you peers. Your peers is hard enough, but then when you see that you're trying your best to like do some shit, and you still ain't enough, because one person can never be enough. Two people can never be enough. You know what I mean? You know, it breaks your heart. It's a hard thing to do, but you got to keep pushing forward in one way or another. And like, I do want to get back to mentoring at some point, but I always kept my shit moving to try to help us, because like, the reality is, like, it's my responsibility. It's a responsibility to follow through, but it's just not easy, man. And so when you see people that are out here and been doing it, don't think that it's easy for us, dog. Like, it's heartbreaking as fuck in ways that most of y'all don't understand. You know what I mean? Like, seeing, like, I can't emphasize how hard it is to watch multiple youth that you mentored, like, have all sorts of horrible shit happen to them, and then basically almost lose their mind to drugs. Like, that's not easy to fucking see, to deal with, and not just see, but be a person that wasn't unable to stop it from happening. You know what I mean?
Right. Because it's always that part of you that feel like it's something I ain't, just from my own experience. If it's always that part of you that feel like it's something that I ain't do. Something that I ain't say, that if I had just said this, that would have been it. And they don't never,
It's kind of a trap, because the thing is, the thing that this cat told me, and like, he was right and wrong at the same time. And I kind of brushed him off, but I listened to his name was like White King. He's like, he's kind of like problematic in my city, but like, in some ways, but he's like a 5%er, right? And he's like, you have to get your money right. You have to get your shit right before you can help anybody else, which I don't completely align with that. I disagree with that in a lot of ways. I helped a lot of people, but I get what he was saying, because when it came down to a lot of things, now looking back, I was like, man, if I would have had more resources, I would have got my money together first. I could have actually done things that I couldn't do from a point of like not having shit, but still doing the work. You know what I mean?
Right.
But then there's the other side of it, is like, but how many of the niggas that actually do that ever come back and actually follow through on that shit in a real way? So like, there's something about doing that compromises you 90% of the time. You know what I mean? It also, you only have so much time, so it'll take time out of your day that you have to put towards being there for your community. And so it's just kind of like a catch-22, because he's right, but he's also wrong. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I just don't know how to. I still have not figured out. This has been the way I've been trying to figure out how to get around that, and it hasn't worked for me yet. I'm not FDA. It hasn't worked for me yet. So. Because I feel like I do need those resources, especially after my old age. Because I've been doing this for like moving on 17 years now of organizing since a little time, like a year after I got out of prison. And it's just like the resources always come up to the problem, but then the people who have resources are never invested in making the movements happen. You know what I mean? And making and supporting the community and supporting specifically the youth, because that's who we need to support. That's who we need to like lay the foundations for them to walk into a world where they stand a chance of being free. You know what I mean? Because it might actually just be too late for us. We might be too far down the road for us specifically. Or it's going to be when we get old. And we're like, yes, liberation with my cane. I wish I could enjoy it. Oh God, I'll just my back hurts though. You know, so. But all right, I should let you go because I know you know we've been going a little over an hour and a half actually. But it was good fun to talk to you. And everybody, please go watch the video if you haven't seen it. Go watch Bill's video as well if you haven't seen it though. There's 2 weeks before mine because I take too long to put out videos. I'm sorry, y'all. But all right, Ben.
All right, y'all. Be easy.
All right, y'all. We'll catch y'all later. Peace, peace. I'm gonna end this, man. We'll chop it up for you for a second. Oh no, I guess not. All right, peace. Oh, it's ended now.